In case you guys are wondering, no, I did not have to bribe a Target employee to get this figure. I didn't have to buy them lunch or anything like that. I just found it on the shelves. I don't like asking Target employees to check the back anymore because they always act like I'm asking them to give me a kidney or something. God forbid they would have to do a smidge of work. But no, I was able to find it out in the wild. Pretty exciting stuff. And I decided to give you guys my personal opinion, my personal thoughts on this particular figure and how it stacks up to other Carnage action figures that have been released in the past. So without further ado, let's get straight into this figure. And I have to say, first off, this is a very difficult figure to find, at least here locally. I had to go to maybe like 6-7 different Targets. Obviously not all the same day, but you know, throughout the course of like 3 to 4 days. So it was very difficult to find. Some had street dates, others were being released maybe like 2 to 3 days after the release date, like they were holding them in the back somewhere. They were holding them hostage, and so I was finally able to find one. So definitely be patient. I believe the price point for this one is $24.99, but as I said, it is pretty difficult, but you should be able to find it if you're patient. Now, just comparing it to the Venom Pool Build-A-Figure Wave Carnage, it's exactly the same figure. There's some slight different paint applications. I think like the toes are painted black, and then obviously the extra accessory pieces that you can port on. So the original one did not have any extra hands. It just came with 2 clawed hands, and that was it. But with this particular figure, you're getting the exact same body sculpt aside from a new head sculpt and then the 2 extra accessory pieces. That's it. It's the exact same figure. So if you already have the original and you don't really care too much for the extra accessory pieces or for the extra head sculpt, then you should be good. And as I mentioned, the articulation is essentially the same. It can look up and down extremely well. It has some tilt. The hinge at the ab articulation is phenomenal. Good solid butterfly joints, double jointed elbows, double jointed knees. It can kick forward extremely well. There is also a thigh cut as well as a cut at the calf. So as I said, same articulation scheme, same exact body mold for both figures, but I will say it's definitely an upgrade with the extra head sculpt. I think the soft plastic around the jaw really helps the figure to be able to look down. I also really like the cut at the thigh as well as the calf. That really helps get into some pretty crazy dynamic poses. And look, I'm a little bit torn when it comes down to this figure because there are times when I say, hey, if an OM needs to reuse a body mold, just do it smartly. Give us something that will make us want to purchase the new one. And I think this is kind of the case with this particular figure. It does feel like those extra accessories in the head sculpt might bring more collectors than usually. And also this is a store exclusive, so there will definitely be less and less available as time goes by. It's kind of a little bit of a conundrum. For me personally, I feel like if you already own the previous one, those extra accessories don't do it for you. Don't purchase this figure. But if you're somebody that feels like you want to army build, you want to flesh out your Carnage action figures, and we already know that, especially in the comic books, there are a lot of different storylines where Carnage has quite a few of minions, you know, rummaging the Marvel universe. And so it makes perfect sense if you want to pick up a few extra ones and then have them displayed. Not to mention the weapons actually fit onto the old Carnage, the Venom Pool anyways version. I believe the color tones are just a little bit off, but you can't really see it if it's displayed like a couple of feet from you. So it definitely gives you the opportunity to army build, to have different variants, different versions. You can, you know, swap out head sculpts, you can swap out weaponry. So it's just another reason for why you would want to pick up this figure. I will say there are some downsides to this figure, especially it being a modern figure. We still get hideous pins. We still get some of the same issues or some of the same tropes that we've been falling into. They could have easily worked in that renew your vows double section ab crunch, but again, those are probably pipe dreams. Those are way down the line. I'm assuming the texturing and all that probably wouldn't work, so you would actually need a brand new body mold. So I guess it's within the scale of reason to think that they're going to eventually give us that. But for the time being, they're essentially just reusing that body mold, getting the most out of it, but still giving you reasons to pick up this particular figure. Not to mention it's in that beautiful retro card, so it gives you just another reason to maybe pick up multiples, maybe one to display, mint on card, and then maybe one to open. Overall, I will say I think what I see for the future, at least with Carnage figures, especially after seeing the live action Carnage figure, I think it's to give us more deluxe versions of Carnage and Venom, or any smaller figures that I feel like need some extra accessories. We kind of saw that with the Spider-Man Gamerverse 2.0, where they threw in a bunch of different accessories, a bunch of different hands. I felt like they pushed the price point a little bit too much with that figure, but let's say if they gave us this exact same Carnage, took away the pins, gave us that new midsection articulation, maybe give us like 2 to 3 different head sculpts, like an unmasked Cletus Cassidy head sculpt or something along those lines, and then maybe threw in some other tendrils that can be ported on throughout the body, make it really a deluxe price point, I would be all over that. I think that's where we're headed, especially after seeing the live action Carnage. I'm assuming maybe because it's just a live action one and they decided to go all out with the budget, that's why we got a deluxe version, because that is brand new body mold, brand new sculpt work. It still looks a little bit weird and flimsy, but if we got this exact same Carnage with those deluxe offerings, I would be pretty happy, even if they decided to kind of up the price here. You're only paying $25. You're getting a new head sculpt and 2 different weapons that you can now port into some of your Carnage action figures. And like I said, there are a lot of people, including myself, that plan on army building a little bit with your Carnages, especially if you have that Venom pool version. So all around, if you own the old ones, I don't think you're going to find as much value. At least I don't know the VHS version, but let's say you've picked up every single Carnage that has ever been released from Hasbro, you may feel a little bit slighted. But if this is your first dip into Carnage, or if you haven't owned one in quite some time, this is definitely a figure that you need to have. I personally feel like this may be the best Carnage action figure available right now. The live action one I've heard is pretty good, but I personally don't like the proportions. I don't like some of the limbs, so that kind of kept me from picking it up. I don't own the VHS version either, so maybe that one is a step above this one, but personally I feel like this is the best figure that you can pick up, or the best Carnage. Has the best body mold. I know it's reused, but I love the texture, I love the paint job, I love the little tendrils coming off of, the calves, the arms, things of that nature, and then the little tendrils that you can port onto his back, all of that, and then the head sculpt looking phenomenal. I personally feel like this is the best Carnage action figure that you can pick up. As I said, I'm going to take a few points away from it because it still has pins, and because this is technically just a bunch of reuse from the previous one with, slightly different paint applications, but it's still one of the best Marvel Legends, I think, that I've picked up in quite some time, and it is, at least in my personal opinion, the definitive version of Carnage. It's going to be very difficult to find if you're out there trying to, look for it in the wild, but if you are able to pick it up, I think this is a must-have in the display. But again, this is just my personal opinion, my personal take. I'm very curious to see what the community has to say about this figure. Is it a lot of cheap reuse? Should we hold it against Hasbro, or is this acceptable, at least to a certain extent? Because we're essentially wired that way, to think that OMs need to consistently use body molds. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to tell you if that's true or not. All I will say is this is my favorite Carnage so far. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Is it worth picking up? Are you going to pick up multiples to army build, or are you going to pick up maybe just 2, one mint on card, one to open? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like this type of random action figure content, make sure to stay tuned, because we do upload pretty consistently, and sometimes it's just random nonsense. It's not like reviews or unboxing. Sometimes it's just like my personal thought on something, or it's just like a top 5 list of top 5 figures that are exciting to me, or disappointing, or just overall the top 5 most expensive. So stay tuned if you like that kind of stuff. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Stay safe out there, and as always, enjoy the hobby. I'll see you guys in the next one.